Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome to part two. So hopefully you listened to part one. If not, you should probably do so because you might be a little
This won't make
confused.
a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we're recording these back to back, which is always hard for us to come up with, conversational pieces. But I did think of something that happened to me this morning.
Okay.
I'm home alone, and by the time this comes out, I will no longer be home alone, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable saying that now.
Yes.
So I woke up this morning, I started working, and I was like, what's that beeping noise? And I hear like a
Mm-hmm.
beep, beep. And I was like, it sounds like when your smoke detectors are like low on battery. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
great. I can't reach any of these smoke detectors. I'm so short. I can't reach any of them.
You're like, I can do about
So then I
that.
just keep hearing it. And I'm like, oh, this is so frustrating. So I went out to the living room and I look around and I'm like, I don't hear it. And then I come back to the guest room, I'd hear it again. I'm like, what in the world? So then I was like, okay, I think it's downstairs. So I go downstairs. Don't hear it. I go into the laundry room, which is downstairs, and then I hear it not in the laundry room, but like back in like the living room downstairs. And I was like, okay. So then I stood there and I was like, okay, it's got to be this one.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try because I was also texting my sister at this time because she was like, I'll come over after work and help you because I told her because she's like, I'll come over after work and help you like change the battery or whatever. Because I was like, Kevin's gonna get so mad at me if I try to climb onto something and fall.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Yep.
I can't I can't not prove myself home alone, you know?
Yes.
So, so then I was like, you know what? I think I can push this ottoman to the couch over and I think I can stand up. And I was like, oh, I'm so close, but I think I can do it. Hand on it, and I hear the beep, and I'm like,
And
that
it's not
sounded
that
far
one.
away. So I'm looking at all the smoke detectors in my house. Ashton's like, did you check your vacuum? Like your robot vacuum? Did you check your Keurig? Did you? And then Ashton's like, I'm hearing beeping now. Getting like osmosis beeping. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But like every time I would stand somewhere, it would not beep. I would not hear it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would like go back to working. I'd hear it beep again. I have no idea what it was, but it
Oh,
has
you still
stopped.
don't know.
It stopped.
Interesting.
So Ashton was like, those are pretty loud. It could have been like your neighbors, maybe. And then like
Mm.
they, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like in the guest room, it was like so loud. And then I would go to other rooms and it would sound so far away.
That's so
And I
weird.
didn't hear it at all overnight. And I was like looking at everything. I was looking at our mini fridge downstairs. I was looking
Uh-huh.
at the pet feeders. I was like looking at everything and like nothing was beeping. And I was like,
Are
what
we
is
sure
happening?
the
And then it
beeps
just
were
stopped.
actually happening in the world, Courtney, and not just
I
in your
have no
head?
idea because I told Ashton, I was like, maybe I'm just crazy. And she goes, I fully believed you. And then she sent me, I don't know if you remember it. It was like the Harry Potter Puppet Pals, and it's like the sound of the mysterious
Mm-hmm.
beeping. And she's like, that's all I can think of is others that beep. And I said, well, at least if it's a bomb at the end, I'll stop hearing the beep. Like, it was just so weird because it felt like it would happen so frequently. And then I would leave the room
Yeah,
and they're like, what's happening? And I'm like, what is
interesting.
it? But then it just stopped. And so I'm gonna go with the theory that maybe it was. I also don't know. I turned my air back on and the house got kind of cold. And I'm like, could my HVAC be beeping when it's too cold? But
Hmm.
it's been colder in my house. And also, I was in
Yeah.
the laundry room where the HVAC is and it sounded far away. I have no
And
idea
like,
what it
what
was.
would beep in an HVAC system?
Yeah, I have no clue. Because I was like, is it
Yeah.
saying like emergency heat? But it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't like, it sounded like a smoke detector, like chirp. And then
Mm-hmm.
it just stopped.
Interesting. But
It
I feel
just
like too,
stopped.
like, if you were downstairs, I feel like your neighbor's smoke detector would have to be really loud for you to be able to hear it downstairs, you
Yeah, I would
know?
think so too, but it's almost like everywhere I went, it sounded like it was
It
somewhere
was
else.
somewhere different.
And I'm
They're just
like, and then I
moving
would
around the
stand
house.
there. I was like, I'm standing here for 2 minutes. I don't hear a beep. I'd walk away, I'd hear a beep. And I'm like, are you shitting me?
It's so
But
frustrating. You're just like
none of them
chasing this
had
beep
like
around the
red
house.
lights on them, which I feel like usually there's like a
Mm-hmm.
red light or something or
Yeah.
whatever. Nothing. I couldn't find anything. And then the beeping just
It
stopped.
stopped.
I
Well, you'll
really
have to
don't know.
keep me updated on the beeping situation.
If it
Let
starts
me
again
know.
tomorrow, I'm gonna jump off a bridge.
I'll send Andrew over to scope out your house
I
and
know. Yeah, because Ashton was like, I'll come over after work if you can last that long and I'll help you. Because I was like, I can't reach any of these. And I
oh
don't feel like
gosh.
climbing up on a step stool. Like, even the step
Yeah,
stools, like,
no.
I can barely
Yeah.
reach. And I'm like, and I can't fall. Luna
And
doesn't
it's
know
like
how to
hard
call.
too. It's hard too with those because it's like you're standing on a step stool and then like reaching at like the very
And you have
top
to
and then
like turn
twisting.
and then what and yeah.
Exactly.
So, but it stopped. I don't know. I don't know what it was. We'll see
Well,
if it
hopefully it
starts up
doesn't start
again.
again.
Uh, I hope not. It can start again when Kevin's back home in
Yeah,
two
yeah,
days.
he can take care of that. That's a man problem.
Hmm. That's a boy job.
Yep, yep.
Anyway, that was my little conversational pieces. There was some mysterious beeping in my house. Don't know what it was, but it stopped.
Yeah. We'll let you know next time if we figured it
I
out.
know if we hear it again. Because Ashton was like, I feel like I've started hearing beeping. And then she went, oh, my Keurig is beeping 'cause after the coffee. She's like, I hear it now from.
Now she's just on high alert for beeping. Where's the beeping coming from?
Yeah. And I told her, I was like, maybe I was just crazy. And she was like, I have full faith you heard that beeping. I was like, thank you. I don't know what it was. But anyway, that was my little story. I guess I start first, so we should get back
Yep.
into the episode.
Just waiting on
Um,
you. Whenever you're
so
ready.
our sources are the same from last week, if you want to know our sources. And where we kind of left off was that the Bradleys had gone on a cruise. Amy had gone missing, and the cruise had ended. We don't really know where she was. We've had a few sightings of her, possibly on the island of Curacao. And kind of where we left off, where a lot of people don't know if this was possibly she jumped overboard, accidentally fell overboard, she was taken off the ship. What kind of happened? But we've had some possible sightings. Oh, we're about to have another one. In August 1999, the Bradleys got into conversation with a man named Frank Jones. Oh, just kidding. This is not a sighting. That comes later. Sorry, this is
Well,
different.
we'll have one soon.
Another one will come up, but so he said he was an ex-military who would lead a team of Navy SEALs and Army Rangers to rescue Amy. He said his team specializes in these missions to save people who've been captured and kidnapped, but he said he needed to investigate first. He comes back and he's like, she is alive. He can go in and get her, but needs $24,000 to do this plan. So, like, I guess pay everyone because it's dangerous. So, the family sells their car. They raise money. So Frank's team goes in and comes back and says he's made contact with the men who have Amy, but they're demanding a ransom for her return. So he says now that he needs $100,000 to get her out. And so they're like, you know what? We need some proof of life before we
Yeah.
send you more money because this is 1999. So this is like way more than it is today. And this is a lot of money for today. So they're like, we want some proof of life before we're just sending you this money. So Frank sends pictures, and it is of a woman on the beach with a hat on that has all the same tattoos as Amy. So they're like, wow, okay, this is real. Like, we'll send you the money. So, they obviously had to raise that money, get that money. And Frank lays out a plan and told them to be ready to take her as soon as, they get her, go to Miami, have a jet ready to come and get her. So the Bradleys pack a bag and they're so excited because they think they're going to get Amy back. Her mom even made doctor's appointments for when she got back because she was like, oh, she's gonna, she's been missing a while. We need to get her to like a regular doctor, a dentist, like all this. So they fly to Miami and they wait for the call, but it never came. And they actually waited a week in Miami before Frank called. He said he had to abort the mission because a gunfight broke out when they were trying to get her and some of his men were injured. So they decide to head home, but they get another call from a man who they had never met. He said he worked for Frank and thought Frank was scamming them. He said he overheard a conversation about all the things like Frank said they were doing, but he said they haven't done any of that. And he thought he was just using their money to just live well on the island. So
Ugh.
really hard too because they were doing their diligence where they were like at proof of life and they get this picture and
Mhm.
they're like, okay, like he has seen her and
Did they explain like how he got the picture? Like, did he just like use Photoshop or like how did he?
I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know because I think it was kind of like they obviously cut off contact, so
Yeah.
we don't really fully know. But
I'm just like so
yeah,
horrible to just take advantage of someone in that
I
situation
know
who
it's
obviously is willing to do whatever it takes, you know?
yeah, it's horrible. And the things people do, we'll get into it in a second. Just the things people say and do and send are pretty horrific.
Yeah.
In May 2001, Michael Clark took over the case. He was an FBI agent who took it over. And the Bradleys have been searching desperately for 3 years now. Iva said they talked to prisons, hospitals, embassies, anyone who would talk to them. They told the story every time they could, and they said it felt like they were reliving it every time they were telling the story again. But they were like, we're not going to stop because we want to find her. And as we mentioned, they'd kind of set up a headquarters and they had an email, and they would get some pretty graphic emails. People saying her feet were cut with razor blades, saying she was tied to a tree, saying she was hit in the head with a machete and buried in a shallow grave in Venezuela. And here are the coordinates. They look up the coordinates and they don't exist. So they're getting a lot of like false leads, but they're just horrific images they don't want to imagine their daughter as. Because Ron was like, even if you're like, there's no basis to this, like you're still having that mental picture of her being tied to a tree or her being hit in the head. Like you're still imagining that. Um, and Frank Jones as well, he was prosecuted and found guilty of fraud and ordered to send back the money. So he at least did get in trouble for what he did.
I mean, that's good at least, but
At
that
least,
doesn't,
but
you
not
know,
not the
fix the,
trauma.
yeah, exactly.
So in 2001, another tip came in from Bill Hefner. So Bill had been in the Navy for 20 years, and he was on the USS Chandler in January 1999, which pulled onto Curacao. It was just a quick overnight stop, and Bill went out that night and was a long way from the harbor. He stopped in a bar and he's like, I probably should not have gone into this bar. There was a security guard who said, like, where are you going? And kind of had hinted that he had a gun. And Bill was like, I was just going to get a beer. And he was like, let him through. So four people came down the stairs, two guys and two girls. So the two guys had guns, and the two girls sat down with Bill while the guys sat somewhere else. One girl was white and one girl was Hispanic, and the white girl was petite, dark hair, and had some tattoos. One of the girls got up to go to the bar, the Hispanic girl, and the white girl told Bill that she was being held against her will. She said she owed $200 and couldn't get her freedom. And Bill said he'd been in the Navy a while and had been to a lot of places he probably shouldn't be. So it's something that he kind of heard frequently from sex workers of kind of like, hey, I need money. And you're kind of just like, I don't know if this is true or you're just trying to get money kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, he then said that she said with a southern accent that her name was Amy Bradley, and she told Bill that she got off the ship on her own because she wanted to get drugs and now she's stuck. She said she'd been partying with her brother and then left the ship, and she didn't want the guys or other girl to know like she had told him. So Bill kind of took it with like a pinch of salt and left. And Bill didn't know if it was true, and he knew the security guard had a gun, so he's like, I'm not really trying to like cause any trouble. I'm not going to try to be a hero here because that's not going to end well for any of us. And Bill didn't really think about it until 2001 when Amy Bradley's story was posted in a magazine. And this is kind of when he connected the dots that maybe the story was true. And the FBI didn't really get this tip until 2001. Agents tried to confirm if the brothel could be connected, like if where he said it was, if they could, trace it down. It had been years, so it had been hard to corroborate. And I'm also, I think, in one of the articles I read, or maybe the documentary, that like where it would have been had also burnt down. So it was just, there was nothing there at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bill also said he didn't report, her saying this at the time because he didn't want to get in trouble. He didn't want to admit he'd been in an illegal bar, and then he didn't want to get in trouble within the Navy and be like restricted to the ship or get in trouble. And he was also 2 years away from retirement. And if he got in trouble, he could have been retired a lower rank. Bill was asked by producers how sure he was that it was Amy, and he said he looked, it looked like the picture, and he does believe it was her. They showed him pictures of Yellow, but he couldn't say for sure as far as the men go. Some people don't believe Bill, but he said he only came forward because it was the right thing to do, and he was trying to help. I think it is one of those things where it's like hindsight, you're like, why didn't you do something? But he probably did not know Amy Bradley was missing, and also like, he eventually came forward and did the right thing. But we also don't really know. We have a lot of these sightings, a lot of people saying they saw her. We also
Mm-hmm.
don't know how true it is or if this is him, I mean, he might have been drinking. He could have just been like, a woman did say to me she was being held there. It did kind of look like Amy Bradley put it together. We don't really know, but
Yeah. And like you said too, if he's been to places like this before and he's heard like similar stories from sex workers and it's like you kind of stop believing it after a while, it's like he may have thought
hmm
in the moment like, okay, this isn't true, like she's just trying to get money out of me, you know?
yeah, because having like a specific amount of money and you're like, are you just trying to get me to like hand you over money? And you don't really, know that
Yeah.
everyone's looking for her kind of
hmm
thing.
I mean, especially too if it's like $200. Like she's like, "Oh, I'm being held over $200." It's like that seems like a smaller amount than you would expect, but like an
Yeah,
amount that a man in a bar could likely
would
have and it's
have.
like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay, like I can, I can do that for you," versus like, "Oh, I'm being held against my will for like $10,000." And he's like, "Well, there's nothing I can do to help you with that." But like $200, it's like, "Oh, that could kind of
And
get
how do we
people."
also, I don't know if anyone on the internet has said this. This might be major tinfoil hat. I also don't know if this is something where the guys were kind of in on it because the island of Curacao might have known that Amy was
Mm,
missing and that she could like, oh, this looks like an
yeah.
American. They might know the story. Hey, say you're Amy Bradley. Say that you're missing and you need $200. That American tourist or American Navy person is not going to
hmm
cause a drama because he sees all of us having guns and he'll get the
Yeah.
money,
That is true. I mean, that could very likely be a scenario.
to because then it's like, oh, well, what, you go report this? Well, you're going to get in trouble too. Just
Yeah.
it might not be, it could have been Amy. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a case where there's so many unknowns, I think you can definitely explore every angle and
Hmm.
definitely a possibility that something like that happened.
Yeah.
So the Bradleys don't fully believe that Amy was out trying to get drugs. Brad said that she would smoke and drink beer, but he never really saw her like do anything further. But the Bradleys do believe that Bill could be a legitimate witness, and they do wonder if she could have been sex trafficked. So they start to think about like all the things that were happening on the ship. So if you remember, the waitstaff had been very attentive to Amy. One night they asked where Amy was because they wanted to take her to Carlos and Charlie's. And if that name sounds familiar, that is the last place Natalie Holloway was seen before she went missing. So, very interesting connection here.
Yeah. And that I remember was like known as kind of a shady bar in Aruba. But whenever
Mm-hmm.
I saw that written out, I was like, wait, is that the same bar? I'm like, this is the
Mm,
same one as Natalie Holloway. So that also
yeah.
kind of like tipped me off because I remember it was like rumored a lot of tourists would get drugged at
Mm-hmm.
Carlos and Charlie's. So,
Yeah. And Iva told Amy, and she was like, no way, we're getting off the boat. And Iva also noticed a man who had been looking at them. And Iva said she kind of like held her hands up, like, can I help you? And then like she looked away and then he was gone. So some interesting interactions with people. Iva also said that the formal night where they had their picture taken, that they went to get their pictures, and the gallery guy remembered like putting their pictures up, but then couldn't find them anywhere. So he's like, "Oh, like they're not here." And he asked if anyone else had been by to get them, but they hadn't. So Iva said at the time, like they didn't think much of it, like just asked him to redo the photos, and he did. But now Iva's curious because like people were looking at her, talking to her, trying to get her to go off the boat with them, and then now all of a sudden her pictures are missing. So just like a lot of weird coincidences
hmm.
related to Amy. And in 2005, there was a series of photos that the family received. So, allegedly from a website where people would meet for free sex or to engage with sex workers. And obviously, at this point, it had been 7 years, so that can really change a person's appearance. But the family looked at the nose, chin, and hair and thought it could be Amy. So the FBI is very interested because this could be a huge lead. So they're like, we need to figure out where this was taken. So the picture had been on a website that dealt with sex work in the Caribbean and Venezuela area. So all the pictures are like women in these like risque outfits and poses. And the FBI has a lot of pictures of Amy that they then use to compare to the photos. So they have measurements of like her ears, her chin, her eye angle, her nose, her shoulder, her arm, just like very specifics of Amy to try to compare to these photos. And a forensic analyst looked at the photo and said they believed it was Amy Bradley. So very interesting. So soon after these photos, the Bradleys went on Dr. Phil to talk about them. And when this episode aired, Judy Maurer was watching and was shocked. So she remembered seeing that girl in Barbados. So in March 2005, Judy and her husband went on a cruise, and one stop was Bridgetown, Barbados. She wanted to get some souvenirs, so they went to a downtown store. They didn't find anything that they wanted, and her husband was hot. He's like, let's just go back to the ship and eat. But then Judy wanted to use the restroom first. So she went in and she was only there 3 or 4 minutes when she heard people come in. She heard talking and realized that there were men in the restroom. There was a man over by the door. He was talking. She couldn't remember everything he said, but she did hear him say, "The deal's at 11 o'clock, and I'm warning you, you better be ready to go." So Judy had no idea what was going on. The man left, so she opened the door, and there was a young woman by the sink, and she had long dark hair, and it was kind of like wild and crazy. She had a skirt and a sleeveless top on. She said that she just had this awful look on her face and was crying. So Judy washed her hands and she asked the girl if she was on vacation. She shook her head no. She asked her if she lived there and she shook her head no. And she wouldn't talk, but Judy asked her name and the girl said Amy. She said it sounded like a Southern American accent. Judy asked where she was from and she thought she said West Virginia. She said, "Oh, like I'm from near there. Like I have a daughter named Amy about your age." And the girl then started like coming towards her and like backed her into a wall and stared at her. Judy tried to just be like, "Oh, like nice to meet you. Have a good time." And she opens the door and like the man's standing there. So she just plays dumb. She's like, "Excuse me, gotta leave," kind of inches by him. And she said the girl's back was to the door the whole time she was leaving. So Judy got back to her husband and told him everything. She said she thinks the girl was being forced to do something that she didn't want to do. So then, like, these three people come through, like, they all have their arms linked in hers, and they disappeared. And Judy's husband was like, "There's nothing you can do." And so they went back to the ship. But she said all she could think about was that girl. And for weeks after, that's all she thought about. So she didn't know what to do, and she tried to put it out of her mind until she saw the Dr. Phil episode. And at that point, she called the FBI office and told them what she saw.
So FBI agents went to Barbados to see if they could corroborate. They spoke to the store, but there's no camera and no video, and it really couldn't go anywhere. So again, another possible sighting, but we don't really know for sure. So the FBI was also looking at these photos that were sent to the Bradley family, and they were really trying to break down everything they could in the photo. Could they identify even any piece of furniture, any lead they can get in these photos? And they say, finding a trafficking victim is very hard. FBI agent Michael Clark said rescued victims are often told their families back home will be killed if they don't continue to do what they're told. So it's a lot of like intimidation tactics and stuff like this where you might be like, "Oh, why isn't she reaching out or why isn't she running away?" And it's like they're being threatened so heavily that a lot of times it's very hard to find them and get them out of these situations. So in April 2017, which was 19 years since Amy had been missing, Amica Douglas, who's Alistair Douglas's daughter, called the Bradley household, and she said she had information she wanted to share. So Amica was born in Grenada, and her dad were very close. He took her on a lot of adventures, going to go get food, going to the beach, but he was gone a lot playing like music on cruise ships, and he was all about his music. So Alistair and his wife got divorced when Amica was maybe like 1 or 2, and when Amica got older, her mom told her that something happened on a cruise ship Alistair was on, and if she looks up his name, she might see some of that. So Amica wasn't born at the time, but her mom told her that when he came back, everything just changed. He was upset, he was lashing out at her, and she was pregnant at the time, so she thought it was very odd where she was like, "Oh, you just come back from this cruise ship and now you're a completely different person and being really mean. What's happening?" And he'd also come home with a bag, and her mom looked into it, and it was just pictures. And there were just all these pictures of like white women, which was very confusing of why you come home and a bag just pictures of white women. So Amica asked Alistair what happened with Amy, and his reaction was weird, and he gets very upset anytime it's kind of brought up. And Amica feels like his story is missing a lot of parts. So on the documentary on Netflix, Amica actually calls her dad on camera and asked him directly about Amy's case. He said he didn't do anything wrong and that anyone who had served her drinks or cleaned the rooms were grounded, but eventually could go back to work kind of after the fact, like when they were investigating. He worked for 2 more years on cruise ships after that. She asked him about the beach sighting months later, and he said, "Which beach? Because I don't like beaches." He was like, I'm not going to be on a beach. I don't like beaches. Um, Alistair said all he did was dance with her. He left around 1 a.m. and went back to his room. So how would he know if she got off the boat? She also brought up the suitcase full of photos, and he said they took photos of everyone and people wanted to take pictures with them, and it was just nothing like weird, and he just remained saying he had nothing to do with it, and he was very clearly upset in that call. But as we said, he's been upset that he's been a suspect, and that could be because he's innocent or that could be because he's guilty. We don't really know. And Alistair did do some suspicious things. The girls did see Amy and Alistair after the disco had closed at 3 a.m. And they do have his room entry logs, and he entered his cabin at 3:35 a.m. But after that, the timeline can't be confirmed because, again, we don't know if he left. We only know when he came in, not when he left. And unfortunately, we also cannot corroborate Lori and her friend's timeline either because they did go back up to the top deck. That's when they saw them. They said between 5 and 6. But when they went back to their room, they had forgotten their keys. So they just had to knock until one of the mothers opened it and let them in. So we don't have like a lock link showing key entry. So we can't even really corroborate their timeline, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, because that feels like a very important piece here. And also, like you said, we don't have phones, we don't have smart watches. Like we have regular watches, obviously, but like
Hmm.
you're out all night at a club, knowing the exact time doesn't feel like
Yeah.
a super likely thing to happen. It's like, and you might be able to guess a rough time frame, but I'm also assuming you've been drinking, like you may,
You
just
were
not be.
also, I was thinking too, like you go, this is like the first day the ship is docking. You're on Aruba all day trying to make your most, you're out. It's not like you're relaxing all day. You're like out being a
Hmm.
tourist, all that. You're coming back, you're having your formal dinner, then you're out drinking till 3 a.m. and then you can't sleep. So you go back up and it's like, how well is your memory and your idea of
Yeah.
time? We don't
Are
know.
you in a different time zone? Like, do you even like have you
Yeah.
adjusted your handheld wristwatch
Yeah.
to like the new
Yeah.
timeline? I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
factors
So
there.
unfortunately, we can't corroborate that, which would have been amazing if we could have, because that would be a lot
Yeah.
more. It's also hard to question Alistair because he's not an American citizen, so they don't really have jurisdiction to do so. They did question him once before, but in order to question him again, if he's not going to come in willingly, that's getting a lot of different countries involved, a lot of,
Hmm.
you know, permissions and stuff. So,
Yeah.
so now we're gonna kind of deviate from the timeline a little bit, and we're gonna talk about Molly. So Molly met Amy at a basketball tryout. Molly was 14 and shy, and she said Amy was just like confident, loud. They were like all playing, and she was making these like playful trick shots and kind of like showing off. And they were both on the travel team, and they became best friends. Molly was falling for her, but they went to different colleges. And Molly and Amy both came out in college, but they didn't know it until graduation because they went to different colleges. This is before Facebook, all that. So, you know, no one's posting on their story, anything like that. Um, and so they ended up both going to a gay bar and hung out all night. They caught up and they did kiss that night. So Molly had just gotten a job at the University of Kentucky. So she was going to leave, but said like they both knew they kind of wanted to be together and they were interested in pursuing a long distance relationship. So in January 1998, Amy called Molly to say that she'd kissed someone else while she was drinking. She said it didn't mean anything, but helped her confirm her feelings for Molly. So not great, not really what you want to hear from your long distance girlfriend. So Molly told Amy like she needed time, and she wasn't really answering her phone calls. So Amy started writing her letters and even wrote her a message in a bottle on February 24th, 1998. So she like put it in a bottle and shipped it. And she actually went missing exactly a month later. But after she received that letter in February, Molly reached out and her and Amy met up a few days before Amy left for the cruise. Molly met Amy's new dog Bailey and saw her new apartment. And Molly just knew after this, like they were gonna make it work. Like they'd hit this bump in the road, but like they were both ready to continue pursuing their relationship, and they'd made plans for Easter to see each other after the cruise. And she also said Amy was very excited for the cruise, and Amy had wrote Molly a postcard when they were in Puerto Rico, and it actually arrived after Molly found out that Amy was missing.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
There are also a few things that came out after the documentary saying that the Molly story isn't true and that Amy had a boyfriend when she went on the cruise. So they also said that the letter to Molly was more of just like a friend message, so not like confessing love or anything like that. However, her parents did comment on her coming out to them and never mentioned a boyfriend, so we believe this is just a rumor.
Yeah, because yeah, this site was like she actually had a boyfriend at the time, and I'm like, it was a pretty big point in the documentary with Molly, with Kat, and then also both of her parents commenting on,
Yeah.
Amy coming out to them. So even if you want to say maybe her and Molly weren't as serious as, whatever, but I don't believe this whole boyfriend thing is true.
hmm And like no one else was saying that she had a boyfriend, like no one that she's actually like close to who's being interviewed is saying like, oh yeah, she had
Because,
a boyfriend, and someone would know.
and I feel like too, it was always talked about that like she was a lesbian, not that she was
hmm
bisexual. So it was not like she's bisexual, she likes women and men. It was all like she
Yeah.
was a lesbian. And I feel like too, with how her parents like weren't super thrilled with like her coming out, that like they would have then been like, oh, well, she had a boyfriend. So it wasn't like,
hmm
I feel like they would have brought that up, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So 2018 was the 20th anniversary, which is always a great way to get information out there, like reiterate that like the FBI is still working the case. So they did have age progression photos done since it had been 20 years. They did different hairstyles and they begged people to come forward even if they just had like the smallest detail. Obviously, the internet has evolved a lot since 1998, so they're like, okay, maybe some like, online discussions can generate some new leads. So in Sydney, Australia, a man named Anthony Willis was an online investigator, and he first heard about the case in 2014. Amy's story really moved him, and he created a website called amybradleyismissing.com in 2018. So he did this so that all information could be posted to one place. He had the photographs, sightings, all the tips, archived links, theories, and David Carmichael, the one who saw Amy in Curacao, had been in connection with Iva, and she told him about the website. So Iva and Anthony were also in communication. David's like, okay, we have IP links and like data from this website. Like, why don't we start to mine that data? So Anthony can find each and every IP that visits the website so he can then look it up and get the general geolocation for that IP. So Anthony starts sending David the data, and David starts filtering through it, just like looking for any kind of patterns. There were a lot of IPs from Bridgetown, Barbados, which was the last sighting of Amy. They also noticed that on birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmas, someone kept hitting the site. So they really dwell on like Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays. It's someone in Curacao, Barbados, and like they're sitting there for like 45 minutes. So David's theory is that this is either the people who are involved and they want to see how close they are to being caught, or that it's Amy herself. So they do have a lot of like sentimental photos, photos of her car, her dog, like the garden they built. So they're doing this just in case like Amy is looking at it and they're trying to like let her know and make her think
Hmm.
about these things because I mean at this point really anything is possible.
Yeah, so they had like a lot of like up-to-date photos and like family, whatever, because they're trying to be like, could this be her who she's too
hmm
scared to reach out, but maybe this is her way of like checking in.
hmm
Um, we did use this website as a resource, but a lot of the links don't really work anymore, at least for
Mm,
me. They
that's
didn't. I'm not
sad.
sure why.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just my laptop thing. But when I was watching the documentary, they mentioned it and I like went straight to it and they're like, and we look at people's IP addresses. And I was like, oh, well, they're about to get a Knoxville, Tennessee hit right there. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm
but
sure it got a
yeah,
lot of traction after the Netflix documentary too.
that
So,
might also be why it was like struggling for me is because
mm,
like maybe there was just too many people are going there. So,
yeah. Yeah. So the IP addresses seems like a great tool, but they would have to go through a legal process to get like specific subscriber information. And if these people are international, like they can't obtain that information at all. So again, the theory is that like she could be the one that's looking at the site. And so they're curious, like, why would she not reach out then? And it is hard to know, like, if this is Amy and like who is holding her, like what consequences there could be for reaching out. Because again, like she may not be like there like of her own free will, you know? And Judy said in Barbados that she heard the woman asking the man if they could see the children, and he said yes. So she didn't know who those children were, but she got excited about that and was like, oh, like she could be a mother now. Like, could there be like threats against her family? So she's not going to come forward if she thinks that like her children are going to be harmed, you know? The Bradleys have kept the bags Amy packed for the trip in their attic. They've left it exactly as is, and Iva says they've lost a lot of years searching, but they will never stop. Brad is in his 40s now. He's never had children. He did say watching his parents deal with the loss of a child was a big factor in that. They kept Amy's car, like they keep it shined up, keep it out of the weather in perfect condition, and they believe that she is alive and will come home. And I feel like you just need to hang on to that belief, you know? So the FBI did question Alistair Douglas, and he voluntarily took a polygraph test. The FBI released him with no evidence to charge him in Amy's disappearance. And in 1999, the Bradleys filed a lawsuit against Royal Caribbean. At the time, Royal Caribbean said it acted appropriately and responsibly at all times, and the lawsuit was dismissed. There have been some additional possible evidence since the Netflix documentary came out. So, a source says that a female bar server on board has come forward to corroborate the possible sex trafficking. She said the night Amy went missing, like a server was saying, like, Senorita kidnapped. The server didn't speak much English, and the bar server was told to shut up and go back to work. She was not featured in the docuseries because her identity wasn't known. And the docuseries has also encouraged the FBI to reopen the case with a new agent. There are also rumors that new, possibly suspicious IPs are visiting the website, including one that appeared to be a boat off of Barbados. A lot of trafficking takes place on boats, which is like what kind of raised the question here. There is also rumor that the idea of like Amy having a child could hold more weight. There's also a push for the Amy alert on cruise ships. This would be very similar to an Amber Alert, where a notification would be sent on the cruise app. The missing person's photo and last place seen would be placed on the app and cruise TVs. An immediate lockdown would happen. There would be a search of the ship. They would do a manned overboard search if necessary and report it to the Coast Guard. So there is a petition right now to sign to activate this type of alert. So if you have any idea what happened to Amy Bradley, you can submit tips to 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov.
Yeah. So this one, I remember hearing this one like I think maybe back in 2017 on Crime Junkie and it like stuck with me. And so
Mhm.
I remember when the Netflix documentary like just came out. Like I remembered it. This one's just stuck with me because it's like it's such a baffling case because it is like
Mhm.
what happened. And there does seem to be so much possibility that she could have been sex trafficked and she could
Mhm.
be in Barbados and Curacao in one of the
Yeah.
islands, you know? Um, and like the pictures, like they kind of do look like Amy. Like they've had like people who like measure and they have like side profile shots that they
Mhm.
compare. And there's a lot of like similarities in the face that obviously like, I feel like if you look at it just looking on, you're like, I don't know. But again, it's like multiple years later and there's no telling what trauma Amy has
Yeah,
endured during these
absolutely.
years, you know. But it's just this is a tough one because I feel like it's so big question mark, and this one feels
Mhm.
like so much more evidence that she could be alive,
Yeah.
that she is out there and just like can't come home.
Yeah. Like I feel like too the fact that she has like distinctive tattoos that people like report seeing, but then I mean we also know how people are with like false confessions and people wanting to like
Hmm.
get themselves in investigations and it's a big case that, has been covered a lot. So are people just wanting to be involved and be like, oh yeah, I did see that person, or you saw someone who like looked similar with like a similar tattoo, and like now your brain is telling you that like
Mm-hmm.
that's who you saw and like that was the tattoo you saw. Like, are you like putting all these pieces together? Or like you said, like, are there people like intentionally pretending to be Amy on the island to get people to give them money to like, of
Yeah.
course the one incident, with the sailor was kind of the only one where someone was specifically asking for money. The others were just kind of random sightings, but who knows like where that interaction would have went if pursued
Yeah.
longer. I don't know. This one's,
This one's tough.
do you have any thoughts that your gut reaction to this?
I don't really know because I do believe, I feel like they did start doing it like the whole day we're doing a search of the waters. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, especially with like the guy from Curacao who's like, I've lived on this island, I know how these currents work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they would have found her with how
Mm-hmm.
close they were. I feel like they would have found her if she jumped or was pushed.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard for me with so many sightings and these pictures. Part of me believes this could be an actual case of sex trafficking, and she's kind of being
Yeah.
held against her will, especially if there is a child involved and she's protecting her kid and doesn't want to,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really know, but that would be almost my gut reaction just because, like, I feel like there's so much more evidence for the
Mm-hmm.
fact of these sightings that she was alive versus because it really could only be her jumping overboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they would have found her body, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess my big thing though is like, okay, so her dad, well, we assume her dad saw her at 5:30. Not to say that her dad is wrong, but I mean, people have realistic dreams
Mm-hmm.
where it's like you think you kind of see something and then you kind of drift back asleep. Like maybe he thought he saw her legs on the balcony at 5:30, but he really didn't. Like maybe she was gone, earlier than that and it wasn't just that like 30-minute window. But either way, like we know she was back in the room. So like where would she have gone? Like was she going back out to meet like someone from the club? I'm just like, what was she going to do? Because you can't get to the balcony without going through the room, I assume. So like I can't imagine anyone is like coming in, like getting her off the balcony, taking her through her room with her sleeping parents and brother? So like she had to
Yeah,
have gone out
I
in
definitely
that
think
time
she
frame.
left the room on her own. I think it's weird that she went with like left her shoes. I don't know if there's another pair of shoes missing or not, but I could maybe see her like going back on the deck and if like she did run back into yellow and there is some
Mm,
basis among like him like taking her somewhere.
yeah.
I just don't know about her jumping overboard. I feel like people would hear it maybe because it
Yeah.
was early, but like also people like within by like 7 a.m. were ready to get off that boat. So I feel like there would be
Hmm.
people like even right after Amy went missing, like the people in the room two doors down could like were up and hearing noises and stuff. So like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, especially too, if you have like a cruise ship with like a bunch of older people, like I bet a lot of people are up at that early hour. And
Mm-hmm.
like we also mentioned, like any time zone differences, like people are running on all
Yeah.
kinds of different
You have the
schedules. So
crew who has to get up and
yeah,
get things ready and a lot of cruise ships sometimes can have like 24-hour like food places. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like certain
yeah.
places are closing, but like people are up and about and
And that's the thing too, it's like there are all of these potential sightings, and we have the person who supposedly heard things in like the neighbor's room with like the
hmm
TV and talking to somebody or whatever, but no one is reporting like hearing a thump and a splash,
yeah.
which I feel like whether it was true or not, someone would be saying they heard that? So it's like
And my
the fact
thing
that
too
no
is
one
like
reported that.
she had the yellow like tank top on or shirt on and took it off and then only had the white
Hmm.
tank top on. Why, if she was out there, would she take any of that off? And why would she open the door and like put her yellow t-shirt inside and leave the balcony door open if she's jumping?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't. It's a very odd case for sure. Yeah, but let us know your thoughts on this case.
Hmm.
There's a lot of thoughts to be had. So, do you have any theories? What
It's a
theories have you
huge question
seen?
mark.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of Reddit rabbit holes that you can
Yeah.
go down about this case. But yeah, reach out to us, let us know. Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is not going to be like our traditional perk of the week, kind of. But it's something
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I have to like kind of talk about. The perk of it is like again seeing how your like friends and family show up for you in such a loving way, but it's really more of a sad thing. And I just want to talk about my sweet little baby Nova unexpectedly passed away this week, and I'm gonna cry talking about it.
Oh.
But she was only 6. She was about to be 7. And just happened suddenly. The best they can think if it was a heart issue.
Hmm.
And it's been a devastating week for the Ebert household in general. We've really been
Yeah.
struggling with it, but just kind of seeing, people who just we've had some friends like send flowers and people checking in on you and just kind of remembering how many people you have there. But we got our ashes back. We're gonna have a little Nova corner, but the whole house misses her. And I wanted more years with her because she was only like 6, but thank God for pictures and videos because that's all
Yeah.
I've been doing lately is watching that. But I miss her running around. She was my little shadow, but she's been here since the podcast has been here. She was not even a
Yeah.
year old when we started this podcast. She was like 6, 7 months old, was a little
Hmm.
baby.
Constantly
Um,
trying to get in the room and come record
Yes,
with
I'm
us.
sure we've heard her multiple times on this podcast.
Hmm.
She usually was nearby me when I was editing, researching, all that. So she was
Hmm.
she was a part of the pod, but I feel like I
Yeah.
had to mention it because she was my baby, and I just want to talk to everybody about her because she was the best
She
and
was. She was the
perfect little
sweetest little
cat.
kitty.
I
She would love to
swear.
snuggle. She loved to try to eat my leftovers off
Yes.
the coffee table.
Yes. Oh my God, does she love a leftover anywhere? Um, yeah, but it's been hard, but yeah, everyone who met her loved her because she would just be like, "Hi," like we just kept joking,
Hmm.
like she just had too big of a heart, like that was her problem, and she just loved too much or
Mm,
all
yeah.
that. So, and then the day after she passed away, it was snowing, so we kept saying the snow was her being like, "We're
Hmm.
okay." So like every time we walked outside, it would start snowing and stuff, and we're like,
Yeah.
"Hi, Nova," like. It was just like our little like hi to her. So, and I still talk to
Which,
her ashes, which is probably weird, but I don't really care. I give her a kiss every night before bed. Not like
yeah.
hand kiss. I'm not kissing the urn. That's a little weird, but um we have a little paw prints. It's my way of coping right now, guys, okay?
Yeah. But speaking of the snow, if you remember from last week's episode, we mentioned it at the beginning that like one day was 80 degrees and literally the next day it was snowing. So, I mean, it came out of
Yeah.
nowhere. It was a very odd thing to
It was
happen.
very, very odd. Yeah. Well, because I was getting upset too because the last time it snowed, like Nova always has like been really interested in the snow. She loves the
Hmm.
snow. And we talked about taking the cats out, and then I was just being lazy because I was like, well, I don't want to drag my snow boots through the whole house to take them
Hmm.
on the back deck. Like, oh, we'll do it another time. So then I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna have another time to like take her out in
Hmm.
the snow. And then it started snowing, and we were like, and then it was like snowing really hard. We're like, Nova, you can calm it down. And then like the wind was blowing, and it almost blew my hat off. And Kevin was like, that's her paw, like being like, Mom, like whatever, like because she would do that. She would just like paw your face to pieces.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, the first time I sat on the couch, which is where I was sitting and where she'd always sit with me and where she sat like when she passed away, was really hard. And then Kevin was like, look outside because it started snowing and it was not supposed to
Hmm.
snow anymore that day. Like it was
Hmm.
supposed to stop. And so we were like, okay, like you're telling me to be okay. So it's just my
Yeah.
little sign from my little
Little
soulmate
signs.
cat. So,
Yeah.
just want to talk
Yeah.
about her because
Sweet
I'll talk about her
Nova.
to anyone who listens. I might just cry a little bit. I
You
got
did
through
good
this
just now.
without
I was very
crying.
proud of
So
you. I was
I
very proud of
basically
you.
cried for 48 hours straight. So I'm not sure if there's
Yeah.
any tears left in my body.
You
Kevin
need to
told me
drink
to
some more water
stop.
to regenerate.
Kevin told me to stop drinking water because he was like, you need to
There's
like
too many
dehydrate or
tears.
something. Um, but we keep saying it gets like easier, like it's never gonna get better, but we're like
Yeah.
it's you know,
Yeah,
it's an
for
adjustment,
sure.
but
Yeah. I mean, they're part of the family.
yeah, yes, yeah. The house,
Yeah.
she was like the personality hire of the house. So
For sure.
we lost it. And now it's like, why is it so quiet in here? But just wanted to talk about my little baby because she was right
Yeah.
next to me the whole time I researched this whole case. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my decaf of the week, I guess. A little
Yep.
bit of a perk, mostly a sad, but
Just a
um,
remembrance, you know?
yeah, it's just reminds you how lucky you are because people check in on you and everyone loved her, so everyone's kind of sharing their memories with her, which I love,
Yeah.
like talking about. Like I was just talking about girls' night when she kept turning the book light on
I-
in my
That's
face.
exactly what I was thinking when you were saying favorite memories. I'm like, when she interrogated you.
Yes, and she interrogated me.
Courtney has
Um,
a book light like behind her head, and
yeah.
like she literally kept like turning it on like directly in Courtney's face.
Yeah,
We're
because
like,
it's
where
like
were you last
motion
night?
censored, and so like I kept turning to look at her, and she'd turn it on and be like right in my face. So, she has some crazy stories that Kevin and I just keep talking about to
Yeah.
keep talking about her because I just kind of kept replaying everything bad that
Yeah.
happened in my head. So I'm trying to
Absolutely.
like think about the good memories. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
that is my whatever of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week? You got to end us on a
Um,
happy note since we've
Oh,
depressed
okay. I'll
everybody.
try my best. So my perk of the week, and I have to look up the author of this book now, because I did not want to look it up while Courtney was talking because that felt rude to be looking at my phone during that. So I need to find it now. Um, and I'm doing another preemptive perk of the week where I'm sharing about a book that I have not finished yet. So
Hmm.
the last time I did that, the ending of the book was not great, but the rest of the book was still good. I would still recommend it.
Hmm.
And with that one, I did not like the ending, but I understand why the author ended it the way they did. And I felt like it was an intentional choice and not like a poor ending that was like, okay, that was stupid. It
Yeah,
was like, it was an intentional choice. It just was not the choice I would have made, you know? But this book is called My Friends. Have you heard of this? So My Friends by Frederick Backman.
I have heard of it. Yes.
It is so good. It's sad but
Hmm.
happy. It's very emotional. Like it is a very like it's a very quotable book. Like there's very just like
Yeah.
thought-provoking like writing, and it's just a lovely story, and there's so many just like rich characters and like backstory, and it's just such a like heartwarming read, but I mean, it's also very sad and like, it's probably going to get sadder, but it's also very
Yeah.
just heartwarming and like really makes you think about like friendships and especially those like teenage friendships that like carry you through your life and how we like connect to other people and like art and like how beautiful art is and what it does for like all of us. And it's just been a very like peaceful reading experience.
Nice. I'll have to
So,
put that on hold because I feel like I've heard of that one. I feel like I've heard
yeah,
good things, but
I'm
or
about
at
halfway
least by that
through.
author. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you know at the end. I'll definitely give a full if I'm like, never mind, I hate everything, never touch this again, I'll let you know. But again, like I said last time, it's still been my perk of the week, even if it ends up not ending a way I would have chosen. I have greatly enjoyed the journey here, and I can't imagine it gets like worse from here, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is my perk of the week. If you know us and you want to send us your Nova memories, please do so. If you want to tell us anything else that you want to tell us, we are here,
Hmm.
on all the places, all the things. We are on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes if you want to get some bonus episodes. If you were here, I don't think we plugged that at the end of the last episode that you would get part two immediately if you subscribed.
I
But
did at the
anyway,
beginning.
that's true. You did at the beginning. Yes, yes. We just did not, remind
Yeah.
people at the end. But maybe you're here right now listening to part two, or if it was not you, maybe you could be here next time listening to part
Hmm.
two immediately after part
There's
one.
a bunch of bonuses if you need to do
Yeah,
those.
bunch of other stuff over there. What am I forgetting? Leave us ratings and reviews on all the places. We appreciate you. Thank you. All that good stuff. This is our first podcast recording that has gone past midnight, so we're at a
Yes.
new record.
We recorded Wild Friday night here. We recorded 3 podcasts. So
Mm-hmm.
you are
Yes.
welcome. You're welcome,
Yes.
listener. But um yeah, I think, we've said all we need to say. So everyone go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.